Robin Cash, 1806 Grand Avenue Southeast, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 52403. I hadn't planned to do this today. I thought other neighbors from Wellington Heights would be here. I live on Grand Avenue, as I said, and live on the, this side of 19th Street. And thought I should try to reflect some of the concerns that surfaced in discussions that I've been having with neighbors since the flooding that we experienced. Doubtless many of you saw the video or pictures of Grand Avenue flowing like a river. Several cars on the street were totaled. Basements were flooded from, our basement had a few inches in it. Our sump pump was able to take the edge off of the worst of the water. But I know of at least one house that had 32 inches in it. My next door neighbor has lost everything, furnace, washer, dryer, water heater for the second time in 5 years. They are hardworking people, but not people of significant means, let me put it that way. We observed that Grand Avenue is sort of a funnel. If you look on 19th Street and come from 3rd Avenue, it's downhill. If you come from Beaver down to Grand, it's downhill. If you come from Beaver Park down Grand Avenue, it's downhill. There are no storm drains from 3rd Avenue until you get to Grand Avenue. The water just comes right down uninterrupted. The same on 19th Street from Beaver. There is one storm drain at Washington. So this is something that's been problematic in the city's history, my understanding, since 1993. I've heard staff people with the city discuss that there is a problem on Grand Avenue with storm sewers. So something surely can be done. When this last episode came, the city has typically put pumps on through the manhole, where the manhole cover is on 18th Street between Blake and Grand. After repeated requests, they finally did come. When they got there, did not have the equipment to remove the manhole cover. So, and all the while, following the flood, Mr. Hansen was assuring my neighbor that the storm sewers were working just fine. Well, I was out of town on Sunday, so I missed that disaster. I got back in time to pump out my basement on Monday night. After we pumped it out, about 10:30 that night, water was still coming up through the storm drain and running into my sump. So the sewers were still backing up, even after the worst was over. So those are some of the concerns that have been voiced. Some of my neighbors are considering moving because of the repeated flooding. This on top of the continuing decline in assessments in the neighborhood that discourage people who work on their homes and try to maintain them. Perhaps you read Rich Patterson's article in the Gazette this week, which Rich is always eloquent and clear and straightforward, and in my acquaintance with him, I've come to understand that he's been making these points now for several years and feels that they go largely unattended. I'm thinking there are things that the city could do to encourage water being held on property where it falls instead of running into our storm sewers, just as you give incentives to businesses and others to locate here. Perhaps it would be well to give incentives and make possible installation of sump pumps in basements where there are none. I know I have to have my furnace inspected every year for a backflow, to be sure the backflow valve is working. Don't know why we couldn't have a similar program to be sure that basements can be maintained so the foundations don't break and the houses don't fall down. Could give incentives for rain gardens to hold old water. There are many things that could be done. I remember on September 10th of last year, I came before the council to speak about the tax that was being levied for streets and encourage permeable paving in residential areas. We have that in
have to interrupt you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your indulgence. Something will be done.
Is there time to make another comment?
Before we go into closed session, for those of you that took the time out to address some of the flooding issues on B Avenue, I'm going to have several staff people raise their hands, so we're going to go into a closed session to councilors, but I'm going to have Jeff, some of the staff members specifically visit with the residents from over on B Avenue. So I'd like Dave Elgin to raise his hand. This is Dave Elgin. He's head of the Public Works Department. Kevin, right behind Dave. Kevin's with Building Services, and he's here. I think it's John Rake's lead. John Rake's back here. He handles all the demo issues. Who else? Jennifer Pratt from Community Development. So these are three of our key staff, and also maybe Sandy Fowler. Can you raise your hand? Sandy Fowler is the Assistant City Manager. So I would like each one of you to huddle up with that group, and they can get some of your questions answered today, and if not today, at least get back with you in the next few days. And I'll recognize Councilman Julich.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up and asking those folks to be here and talk with our staff. I moved to recess and reconvene in the council chambers conference room and meet in closed session to discuss the purchase of a particular real estate because premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the city would have to pay for that property. Closed meeting for this purpose is allowed under Iowa State Code, Section 21.51J, 2014.
It's been moved by Julich, seconded by Vernon. Councilman Olson, how do you vote? Aye. Councilman Shea, how do you vote? Councilman Shields, how do you vote? Corbett votes aye. Councilman Vernon, how do you vote? Aye. Councilwoman Wynot, how do you vote? Councilman Russell, how do you vote? Aye. Councilman Julich, how do you vote?
Aye.
Council will be in closed session.